I was falling. Wind tore the scream out of my throat and flung it behind me like a ribbon. Below, the lagoon spread open and green like a giant eye. Above me, the helicopter's belly whirled with angry blades. Marcus's face, my husband's face, leaned out of the open door, small and hard, as if carved from a single piece of stone. A second ago, he had shoved my shoulders with both hands, a shove so sure, so final, that it told me he had been waiting for the moment. He had planned it. All because I let out a small, embarrassing fart that he said disgraced him in front of the pilot. The pilot had laughed, kindly, I think. I was nervous. The air was thin, my stomach tight. It slipped out, the way small things slip out when your body is afraid. Marcus went quiet. Then his hand crushed my wrist and yanked the door open. I felt the shout before I heard it. "You dirty embarrassment!" he hissed, and my body went light. Now the world spun, and in the spinning I saw everything. The slosh of the Lagos Lagoon, the black stripe of the third mainland bridge stretching like a sentence I hadn't finished reading, the specks of boats that looked like silver pins scattered by a careless tailor. My braids whipped my face. The strap of my life vest, loose because Marcus had insisted I didn't need it, tightened, flapped uselessly. I tried to pull breath into my lungs, but the air felt like stone. I was falling, and then something in me, something my mama called the stubbornness of our blood, stepped forward and took control. Breathe, think, choose. I flung my arms wide like a scorched bird and flattened myself, chest to the sky, palms open. The fall slowed a little. I could feel the drag. I kicked my legs and turned my body so I faced the helicopter again. For half a second, my eyes locked with Marcus's. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't sorry. His mouth curled on one side, the same curl he wore when a waiter mixed up his order, when a child cried near his seat on the plane, when a taxi driver took a wrong turn. The curl that said, "I am better than you." And then, like a flicker of God's mischief, I saw it. A yellow rescue line dangling loose from the helicopter's side, left over from a beach shoot the company had done that morning. It swung lazily, like a hand waving to me. I reached for it and missed. The line brushed my knuckles and slipped away. Time broke open, and in the gap I remembered how I got here. 2 years earlier, I met Marcus at a fundraiser in Atlanta. If you had been there, you would have seen us. His suit dark like midnight, my dress the color of new mango. He was charming the room with those smooth, heavy compliments that melted like butter on warm bread. He held out a glass of sparkling water and told me he admired my work with community gardens. He said it slowly, like he was tasting each word. When he laughed, everyone laughed. When he frowned, the wallflowers leaned forward to catch the reason. He told me he was from a family that split its time between Houston and Lagos, that his mother still called him my Sunday boy because he always remembered to phone home after church, even if he didn't go. At first, loving him felt like walking through a hotel lobby made of glass and quiet music. He opened doors. He sent flowers to my office. He said I had African queen eyes, and I laughed because I didn't know what that meant, but I liked it. My friends liked him. Auntie Sade liked him. When he flew me to Nigeria to introduce me to his extended family, the aunties pinched my cheeks and said I had home training. Everyone said he had matured, that the wild ways of his 20s had washed off him like rain off a tin roof. But the truth slipped in early. It was small at first. He didn't like the way I laughed too loud in public. "People are watching," he'd whisper, as if joy needed a permit. He pinched the skin at my elbow when I reached for an extra piece of suya. "Portion control," he murmured, smiling at the waiter like we were in on a private joke. He corrected the way I greeted elders, the way I tied my scarf, the way I said tomato instead of tomato. He said he wanted to refine me because the world respects a refined woman. Sometimes he was gentle when he said it. Sometimes he was not. One evening, when a storm rolled in and hammered the roof, I burned the jollof. It stuck to the bottom in a brown layer, that bitter crust everyone pretends not to like, but secretly fights over. Marcus tasted it, set down his spoon, and tapped the table twice. "Careless," he said. "Do it again." When I told him we could eat something else, he slapped the counter near my hand with a flat palm that made the pots tremble. "Do it again." He didn't hit me. He never hit me. He liked to remind me of that. But he hit everything around me. The first time he squeezed my arm hard enough to leave marks was after a gala in Lagos where I told a joke he didn't approve of. I had said it softly, to one woman, not even to the whole table. He smiled through the rest of dinner, kissed my cheek for the cameras, and squeezed my arm in the car until I saw a flash of white behind my eyes. "You don't know when to stop," he said. "You make me fix you." I told myself the pain was small. I told myself love was work. I told myself I was safe because he didn't hit my face. When he proposed, my mother cried into her scarf and said, "Maybe this is your door to the next room of your life." I hoped she was right. I wanted that room, light, soft chairs, windows that opened easy. I made lists. I told myself rules. No jokes he didn't like, no loud laugh, no second helpings. Small steps, I thought. Peace is a small thing you add to your plate like salt. But peace does not sit on plates where fear is eating. On our first anniversary, Marcus booked the helicopter. "Lagos is ugly from the ground and beautiful from the sky," he said. I said I was scared. He said, "Courage is like any other muscle. Let me help you strengthen it." The day was hot and clean. The lagoon glittered like a pot of pepper soup left under the sun. I wore the red dress Marcus chose and a light jacket because the pilot said the air at altitude could be sharp. Marcus made me take the seat near the door, so you'll see more. He buckled me in himself and tugged the strap once, then twice, and I thought it was secure. We rose. The city peeled open beneath us. The pilot shouted facts over the headset in a cheerful, practiced voice. I pressed my knees together and tried to pretend I was amused, but fear made my stomach flutter. And then, quick as a match flick, my body betrayed me. The little puff escaped. The pilot laughed kindly and waved his hand like, "No problem." Marcus did not laugh. His face went blank, the way a screen goes dark when the battery dies. He unbuckled my strap with one clean pull. His fingers were sure. He leaned close, and I smelled the cologne he wore for big deals. "You are a stain," he said, soft enough that only I could hear. Then he opened the door and pushed. I fell. Now, back in the bright scream of the present, the rescue line swung close again, as if the wind had changed its mind. I snapped my arms toward it, catching air, catching nothing. I thought of Auntie Sade's proverb, "The river that forgets it, started as rain, will drown itself." I am rain, I told myself. I can spread. I can choose where to land. I kicked hard toward the helicopter, not away, because I needed that line. I needed proof. Even in terror, the word proof pressed itself into my mind like a prayer. If I lived, I would need proof of what he had done. Marcus was the type to clean up a mess and make the floor smell like lemon. He would say, I slipped. He would say, I unbuckled myself. He would say, I made a scene. The rope licked my arm. I grabbed and missed. Skin burned. I heard myself make a sound like a laugh, which made no sense, but there it was. I tried again. The line flicked past, and I flung my body after it like a fisherman casting a net one last time before dark. For a heartbeat, I felt coarse fibers rasp beneath my fingers. The line swung away. Below me, the lagoon waited. Above me, Marcus leaned further out, one hand on the frame, the curl at his mouth almost a smile now. Beside him, a small black shape blinked red. A camera, fixed under the fuselage, pointed down, recording the low-altitude tour for social media. Proof, my mind whispered again, and for the first time since the shove, a hot, bright anger lit in my chest. If the camera was on, the camera saw. I kicked once more, violent and awkward, throwing my weight toward the helicopter as if I could bend the air itself. The rescue line swung back, slower now, as if the wind wanted me to have it. I reached with everything, hands, arms, the stubbornness of my blood, and my right hand closed around the rope. It burned. It tore the skin of my palm. It held. My body jerked, and the world snapped tight. The helicopter shuddered as my weight pulled on the line. The pilot shouted. The engine whined higher. Marcus shouted too, his voice finally edged with surprise. I curled my arm, wrapped the rope twice around my wrist the way my grandfather taught me to tie a goat at market, and looked up through streaming eyes. Marcus's face was no longer stone. It was something else, something new. He reached for a knife hooked at the inside of the door, one of those safety blades for cutting tangled webbing, and raised it toward the rope. "Let go," he said. I lifted my bleeding left hand, reached for the metal skid under the door, and felt the cold bite of it against my fingertips. And the blade flashed down. The blade came down like a dark bird. For the briefest second, I felt the thud of metal air, and then a cold, sharp pain, like someone pressing ice into the meat of my palm. The rope sang, and then went slack as if a giant hand had let it go. I dropped. There was a wet, hollow sound when my body hit the lagoon, like the world exhaling. Water closed over my head, cool and full of surprising quiet. For a moment, I lost everything. Helicopter, Marcus, the sound of my own name. My ears filled with water, and my head did the wild thing it does in panic, imagining that this was the end and that everything would simply stop. But I was not finished. The lagoon did not want me finished either. Fish darted away like small silver secrets. A rush of air from the skid overhead pushed waves and ripples under me. I kicked up, then down, then up again, because swimming felt like a language I suddenly understood, one taught by mothers, by grandmothers, by the trick of surviving harsh rains. I breathed when I could and swallowed when I couldn't, tasting salt and something else, metal, fuel, a faint sweetness of algae. The pilot had cut the engine now. The helicopter sat like a beetle half ashamed on the wind, blades still. I heard voices above me, the pilot shouting, Marcus, panicked smooth, a stranger voice, maybe the cameraman, cursing under his breath. Someone threw a life ring. It sailed past me like a lonely planet. I swam toward it and felt the burn of every stroke. My shoulder ached when I reached for the ring. My fingers slipped over scum and rubber. The pilot leaned out and grabbed my arm with a force that made something inside me hurl up in fear. Then hands, other hands, took hold. The life ring closed around me like a small moon, and they hauled me toward the helicopter skid. On the skid, Marcus stood like a statue that had lost its marble. His face was wet, not from the lagoon, but from something like fear or rage, or both. For a moment, his eyes searched mine for the last shred of shame he could find. When he did not find it, he turned away. They wrapped me in a blanket. The pilot called for an ambulance, because that is what pilots call when things go wrong at this height, over Lagos, and because the pilot was a person who trusted the law of care more than the law of power. Someone, an older woman with a scarf in her hair who had been at the heliport, kept saying steady things to me, not prayers at first, just steady things that slowed the way my chest climbed. The cameraman, a boy with a tired face, kept muttering, "I got it, I got it," like a broken clock repeating its one instruction. They took me to the hospital, which smelled of bleach and cheap soap, and the kind of pity I could almost taste. A doctor with kind eyes cut away my jacket, and, seeing my palms, made a sound like a small alarm. The rope had not simply grazed me, it had shredded my right palm in a jagged, terrible line. There were teeth marks in the skin where the fibers had eaten in. They stitched me up with a steady hand. They gave me pain medicine that made the room soften like a painting. A nurse put a cold pack on the back of my neck and spoke to me in a calm voice about tetanus shots and wound care, as if I were someone who would follow instructions. When I could think without the needle in my arm ringing like a bell, my phone buzzed. It was Auntie Sade. "Where are you?" she asked. Her voice held the kind of worry that turned women to maps. "At the General," I managed. "They stitched me." "Good," she said. "Stay there. I'm calling a friend." Before I could answer, Marcus walked into my room. He moved through the doorway like a man who had rehearsed this walk in many rooms. His hair was wet at the temples from the rain, though the sky had been clear. He wore the same suit. He sat down on the plastic chair by my bed and reached out as if to touch my hand. The nurse told him he couldn't, and then looked at me with a question in her eyes that I did not need to answer. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked, but the question was a trap. I could hear the journalist in him, measuring tone, watching for pain that could be useful in a press release. "I'm alive," I said. The plainness of the truth felt good. It was like spitting out a bitter seed. "You pushed me." He tilted his head, as if listening to a lie I had let loose. He couldn't finish. He jerked his chin toward the wound. "You unbuckled. People unbuckle. The straps sometimes slip. It's a shame." A wash of anger that was almost laughter rose up in my chest. The deed was done, but the story could be his. Marcus was a man who layered lies as other people layer perfume. He had charm for the cameras and explanations for everything. He knew how to pick the version of a story that would sound reasonable. He was practiced at being believed. I thought about the camera mounted under the helicopter. For a sliver of a moment, I saw the footage in my mind. Then 1,000 doubts followed. Was the camera on? Did it capture Marcus's hand on my shoulder? Did it catch the shove? When the cameraman finally came to the hospital, he kept apologizing like a boy who had lost something profitable. His cheeks were hollow. He held a little camera in his hand, like an offering. "I have the footage," he said. His voice trembled. I can send it." Marcus stiffened. The pilot looked at him. Marcus swallowed. Auntie Sade arrived like a drumbeat. Short, fast, powerful. She kissed my forehead and then turned to the pilot. "You filmed?" she asked. "We filmed the whole tour," the pilot said. "I was recording for the company feed. It's on the recording." Auntie Sadie's hands were a small, fierce machine. She called a lawyer she knew who owed her a favor. She sat down beside me and folded my bandaged hands into hers. Her fingers smelled faintly of kerosene and coffee, two smells that smell like home to me. "You're going to make them show this," Auntie Sade said simply. "We don't let men cut ropes and write their own stories." Marcus protested. He argued about privacy and about how the footage belonged to the company. He spoke in the calm voice he used when negotiating a deal, but even he could not move through the room without the pilot shifting his weight like a hinge. The pilot's eyes were on the little screen in his hand. They arranged to pull the footage. The pilot said it might take a day. Marcus said it would never show what we wanted. He said people would laugh and say I was drunk or dramatic, or that I had staged it for attention. He said it in that same tired, patient voice that had once convinced me to take 2 more flights, to order a plate of something I felt too ashamed to eat in front of him. That night, in the white hospital light, with the stitches cooling and the smell of antiseptic, like a second skin on me, I thought of the push and the blade, and the way the rope had burned my hand. I thought about my grandmother humming as she pounded foo-foo, about the times she told me not to let a man hold your happiness as if it were a borrowed cup. I thought about the way power can be quiet and still, like a snake in a sock. The next morning, there was a message on my phone. It was from an unknown number. The text was short. We saw, then a video link. My heart knocked its own rhythm against my ribs. I pressed the link with fingers that shook. What loaded on my screen was a shaky, low-angle shot from the helicopter camera. For 10 seconds, it was the lagoon, a glossy map. Then I saw Marcus's hand on my shoulder. I heard a harsh whisper, too low to be clear, and then I watched his palm push. The camera caught my fall in a line of frames, my dress, my hair, then the grapple at the rope, the blade, the rope snapping. The helicopter's shadow draped over the water like a big hand, and then the video cut to black as the pilot scrambled to drop the emergency skid. The file was not perfect. There was static, and for a moment the sound refused to line up with the picture. But the shove was in there. The blade was in there. The pilot swore in the background. Marcus looked, just for a second, like a man who had seen his own reflection and not liked it. I watched it 3 times, then 10, until I felt like someone who had read a dangerous book and could not unlearn the words. A new fear moved through me, this one not of falling, but of the way the world would move forward with this in its hands. The video could set me free. It could also give Marcus a chance to rewrite his version, to call the footage fake, to call me an actress in search of a scene. Auntie Sadie put her hand on my shoulder and did not say anything. Her silence was heavy and good. "We will show it to the lawyer," she said finally. "We will make them play it in front of everyone." I felt like a small boat tethered to a large, angry storm. I did not know which way the wind would blow. That evening, Marcus came to take something from the house. He said he needed a briefcase he had left in our room. He asked the nurse if he could see me alone. The nurse shook her head and said no. Marcus smiled as if the answer had made a joke. Later, when the lights were low and the corridor hummed with the sound of vending machines, I received a call. It was from Marcus's number. The voice on the other end was tight and small. "Meet me at the pier," he said. "There's something we need to talk about." I looked at Auntie Sade, who sat across the room folding and refolding a paper napkin like it was a map to follow. She did not lift her eyes. "You will not go," she said. "Not alone." I put the phone down and watched the little bar of battery life blink like a tiny heartbeat. Outside, through the hospital window, the lagoon lay dark and patient. Somewhere lights blinked along the shore. I felt the pull of something old and hard in me, the same stubbornness that had kept me grabbing for the rope. I wanted to see Marcus face the evidence. I wanted the world to watch the video and know. But I also knew the way a man like Marcus could move. the secret channels, the smooth lies. There are doors you do not open without a plan, my grandmother used to say. I put my hand over the stitch line on my palm and felt the faint puckering of the scar beneath. The sting was a promise. The phone buzzed again with a message from the unknown number. They are meeting him tonight at the pier, it said. Come if you are brave. I pressed my thumb against the bandage until it hurt. I thought of the helicopter's shadow and the way Marcus had looked as the rope gave. I thought of the video and of Auntie Sad's steady hands. Then I did something I had not done in years. I had fear and stubbornness sit at the same table. I decided I would go. The decision felt like stepping off a small wall into the dark. I could not see where I would land. But some things are not about where you land. They are about the way you choose to keep your feet. The pier was alive with whispers of water and shadows that seemed to stretch longer than they should. The wooden planks creaked under my steps as I walked slowly toward the end where Marcus stood. The lagoon below lapped against the supports, each splash echoing like a heartbeat in the night. My stitched palm throbbed under its bandage. Every pulse was a reminder of the rope, the blade, and Marcus's shove. He stood there waiting, backlit by a weak streetlight. The glow framed him in half-darkness, his face unreadable, his suit jacket smooth as if the night were another business meeting. He looked like he had rehearsed this moment, the way he rehearsed everything else in his life. You came, Marcus said, his voice calm, too calm. I had to hear it from your mouth, I replied. My own voice shocked me with its steadiness. He tilted his head, almost smiling. Hear what? That you panicked? That you slipped? Accidents happen, darling. People will believe that before they believe your version. I let out a dry laugh, the kind that carried no joy. Accidents don't usually involve knives cutting ropes. Marcus stepped closer, the night breeze tugging at his jacket. His cologne, sharp, expensive, cut through the smell of salt. You really think that video can save you? Do you know how many people trust me? How many men owe me? That footage will never breathe outside the shadows. I raised my bandaged hand. And what about this? You think the world won't see? He glanced at my wound briefly, then dismissed it with the flick of his eyes. He had always dismissed things he didn't want to see. You're thinking like a child, Marcus said softly. You need me. Alone, you're nothing but a bitter story in a broken woman's mouth. With me, you remain untouchable. You think you can fight me, but you don't know how deep my roots go. His words slithered around me, familiar and poisonous. This was how he won before, making me doubt my worth, making me believe he held the world's pen to write my story. But tonight, something inside me had shifted. I wasn't the same woman who burned Yolof and begged for his approval. I had seen his mask crack on the helicopter when fear made him pull the blade. You sound afraid, I said. For the first time, Marcus's expression flickered. His jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed. He stepped closer again. Careful, he whispered. You don't know who you're playing with. The shadows behind him shifted, and I realized we weren't alone. Two men leaned against a car, half hidden in the dark. Their posture was casual, but I could feel the threat radiating from them. Marcus never came without reinforcements. You think you can scare me with shadows? I asked, though my stomach twisted. Before Marcus could answer, another set of footsteps echoed down the pier. They were brisk, confident, unhurried. I turned and saw her, Auntie Sade, small, wrapped in her scarf, but moving like a storm compressed into a woman's frame. Behind her, 2 police officers emerged, their flashlights cutting across the night. The beams of light fell on Marcus, on the men by the car, on me. Marcus's face drained of color. "I told you she would not come alone," Auntie Sadie said, her voice carrying over the water like a drumbeat. The officers stopped near us, their hands steady on their belts. One lifted a phone and tapped the screen. Even from a distance, I recognized the image frozen there. Me at the edge of the helicopter, Marcus's hand shoving. The fall, the knife. The officer turned the phone so Marcus could see. "We've seen enough. You'll come with us." For a long moment, the pier seemed to hold its breath. Marcus's men shifted, glancing at each other. One lit a cigarette, the ember flaring red in the dark, like a tiny warning. Marcus straightened, his voice smooth again. "You're making a mistake. This is a misunderstanding. My wife, she's emotional. She was panicked. The footage is—" "Quiet," the officer said sharply. "We'll hear the rest at the station." Marcus's lips pressed tight. His eyes darted toward the men by the car, but one officer drew his gun, calm and deliberate, and the threat dissolved like smoke. Finally, Marcus lifted his chin and smiled, a crooked, dangerous smile. "You'll regret this," he said, as if the words themselves were a spell. The officers cuffed him, the click of the metal sharp in the night. They led him away, his jacket swallowing him whole. The men by the car melted into the shadows, silent, leaving only the faint smell of tobacco behind. I exhaled, my knees weak, the pier swaying beneath me as though the lagoon itself sighed with relief. Auntie Sade stepped beside me and put her arm around my shoulders. "It is not finished," she whispered. "Men like him, they do not disappear easily. But tonight, you held your ground." Her words sank deep, but a weight still pressed against my chest. Marcus had money, connections, influence. Jail might not hold him. Lies might still rise around him like walls. But I had proof. Proof that could not be polished away with charm or bought silence. Proof that might finally crack the story he had written around me. We turned and walked back toward the main road. The pier behind us grew smaller, swallowed by the night. Halfway to the car, my phone buzzed. I pulled it out, and my heart skipped. It was the same unknown number. A single message lit the screen. "You think it's over. But Marcus is only the beginning." My steps faltered. The letters glowed sharp and cold. Auntie Sade noticed and frowned. "What is it?" I showed her the screen. Her eyes darkened, but her face remained calm. "There are always more shadows when you start dragging one into the light. Don't fear it. We will face them too." But inside me, something twisted. The message meant someone else was watching. Someone else who wanted me to know this story wasn't finished. The lagoon rippled, the moonlight trembling on its surface. Somewhere in the distance, a boat engine growled, carrying strangers across dark waters. And I wondered, what enemy had I just awakened by surviving? The hospital corridor smelled faintly of antiseptic and fried plantain from the vendor outside the gates. By the time they brought Marcus in for processing, my body was still weak, but my spirit had a fire I hadn't felt in years. I sat on the hospital bed with Auntie Sud beside me, watching the ceiling fan circle lazily as if it carried no urgency. Yet deep inside me, everything spun. The pier, the handcuffs, Marcus's crooked smile. They played over and over in my mind like a broken record. The unknown message glowed in my thoughts. Marcus is only the beginning. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me flinch. The squeak of nurses' shoes, the clatter of a medicine tray, the low murmur of voices. Each one felt like a footstep in the dark. By morning, the story had exploded. News outlets were already circling the hospital like hawks. Someone had leaked the helicopter footage online. I woke to dozens of messages on my phone. "Is this really you? We saw what he did. Stay strong, sister. Justice for you. Don't let him silence you." And others, crueler. "Why would a man push his wife just for farting? This must be staged. Attention seeker. Clout chasing. This generation has no shame." The internet had turned my pain into a debate. Strangers were dissecting my life with hashtags and opinions, some defending me, others mocking me. I scrolled until my eyes burned. "Stop reading," Auntie Sade said firmly, taking the phone from my hand. "What matters is the truth, not the noise." But noise can shape truth. I knew that. Marcus knew it too. That was why he always controlled the story. Later that day, the lawyer Auntie Sadie had called. A tall man named Barrister Johnson came to see me. His suit was slightly frayed at the sleeves, but his eyes were sharp and his handshake was steady. "You have a strong case," he said. "The footage is undeniable. Attempted murder charges will stand, but—" He hesitated. "Marcus's family is powerful. They will throw money and influence to twist this. They will claim it was an accident, or that you're unstable. They will try to paint you as hysterical." I nodded slowly. I had already imagined every angle they would use. "Are you ready for that battle?" the lawyer asked. I thought of Marcus's words on the pier. "Alone, you're just a bitter story in a broken woman's mouth." I lifted my chin. "I'm ready." But inside, doubt coiled. 2 nights later, the hospital television flickered with breaking news. Marcus's mother, an elegant woman with silver braids and a voice like a choir bell, was giving a press statement. "My son loves his wife," she declared. "He has never raised a hand against her. This tragedy was a result of panic and poor safety measures in the helicopter. We ask the public not to jump to conclusions based on doctored footage." "Doctored footage," I whispered, bile rising in my throat. The camera zoomed in on her tear-streaked face, the perfect portrait of a grieving mother defending her child. She knew how to sway hearts. She had raised Marcus. Of course she did. Within hours, hashtags shifted. Justice for Marcus, wife lies, doctored video. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. This time, it read, "They are trying to erase you. But I have more proof. Meet me tomorrow, midnight. Old railway station." My blood chilled. Who was this person? And why were they helping me? I showed Auntie Sade. She frowned. "It could be a trap." "Or it could be real," I said. "If there's more evidence, I need it. Marcus will bury the truth if I don't fight with everything." She gripped my hand gently, careful of the bandages. "Then you won't go alone." The next night, we found ourselves at the abandoned railway station. Rusted tracks glistened under moonlight. The old ticket booth sagged, its windows shattered. Graffiti covered the walls, names, prayers, curses. We waited. Minutes dragged. A rat scurried across the platform. The wind whistled through broken panes, carrying the smell of dust and oil. Then, footsteps. A figure emerged from the shadows. A man in a baseball cap pulled low, his shoulders tense. He carried a small black case. "You're the wife?" he asked in a low voice. I nodded. "Who are you?" "Doesn't matter," he said quickly. "I used to work for Marcus, camera crew. He's done things, worse things, but always covered them. I kept copies. Insurance, you know? For when the day came." He opened the case and pulled out a flash drive. This has recordings, audio, video, documents, proof of how he's laundered money, bribed officials, silenced people. If you use this, it won't just be attempted murder. It'll expose everything. My breath caught. This was bigger than I had imagined. Why give this to me? I asked. The man's eyes flicked nervously around the station. Because Marcus is dangerous. And he's not the only one. If he goes down, others go down with him. They'll come after me next. But if you make it public, if you make it too big to hide, maybe we all get free. Before I could respond, headlights flared at the far end of the station. A car engine roared. The man shoved the flash drive into my hands. "Go!" he hissed. "They found us!" Shadows spilled across the platform as doors slammed. Men in dark suits stepped out, their faces grim, their movements sharp. "Run!" Auntie Saad shouted. We ran. My stitches screamed, my lungs burned, but we sprinted across the broken tracks. Bullets cracked the air, sharp, terrifying. Sparks flew as one struck metal. I clutched the flash drive in my fist like it was the last piece of my life. We dove behind a rusted train car, gasping. The men's footsteps pounded closer. Then, police sirens wailed in the distance. Blue lights flashed, cutting across the night. The men cursed, scrambled back into their car, and sped off. I pressed my forehead against the cold metal of the train car, my heart hammering. In my hand, the flash drive burned like fire. Auntie Said looked at me, her eyes wide but fierce. "You see now? This is bigger than your marriage, bigger than you and Marcus. This is about power. And when you pull at power, it doesn't fall quietly." I nodded slowly, my chest heaving. For the first time, I realized my survival wasn't just about escaping Marcus. It was about facing the whole web he was tied to. And as I held that flash drive, I knew one thing for certain. My story had just become a war. What would you have done in my place? Would you have trusted the stranger at the railway station? Or walked away? Tell me in the comments below. I want to hear your thoughts. And if you're still with me in this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, so you don't miss what happens next. The flash drive felt heavier than any stone I had ever held. Not because of its size, but because of what it carried. Proof, secrets, a war disguised in plastic and metal. When we finally reached home that night, after the police escorted us away from the railway station, I sat at the dining table, staring at it. Auntie Said placed a steaming mug of ginger tea in front of me, but I barely noticed. "You're shaking," she said softly. I glanced down. My hands trembled so badly that the flash drive clicked against the table like a clock counting down. "It's not just Marcus," I whispered. "It's bigger." "Yes." She sat across from me, her scarf pulled tight against her head. "And that means you cannot face it alone." Her words dug into me. I wasn't just a wife anymore, fighting for freedom from an abusive husband. I was holding something that could topple men who lived in shadows, men who believed they were untouchable. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made me flinch. The drive lay under my pillow, as if its weight could guard me. Dreams came in flashes. Marcus's hand pushing me, the rope burning my palm, bullets cracking the air at the railway station. By morning, I was certain of one thing. If I kept the drive hidden, they would find me. The only safety was in making it too big to bury. I asked Barrister Johnson to meet us. He came wearing the same frayed-sleeved suit, carrying a briefcase that looked older than me. "What's on this could shake pillars," he said after I explained. "But if we reveal it, You must be ready. They will call you a liar. They will call you unfaithful. They will try to destroy your name so no one listens to your truth. I swallowed hard. They've already called me those things. He studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. We'll make copies. Spread them. Once it's out, they can't kill it. We drove to a small internet cafe hidden between a pharmacy and a tailor's shop. The hum of old computers filled the air, the smell of dust and fried akara mixing together. I plugged in the flash drive, and the screen flickered to life with folders, labeled dates, names, and numbers. My stomach twisted as I clicked. Audio recordings of Marcus laughing with politicians, videos of briefcases exchanged in hotel rooms, documents showing shell companies funneling millions overseas, and, worse, private recordings of Marcus humiliating other women the way he humiliated me, threatening, manipulating, stripping them of dignity. Each file was a wound ripped open. God have mercy, Auntie Sade whispered, crossing herself. Barrister Johnson's face hardened. This isn't just attempted murder. This is organized rot. If this comes out, he's finished. But finished, men don't go quietly. As we copied the files, a sudden crash shattered the cafe window. A rock clattered across the floor. Outside, a group of men in plain clothes stood watching, their eyes cold, their fists clenched. They found us, Auntie Sade cried. The cafe owner bolted the door, shouting in Yoruba, but the men began pounding on the glass. Quick, Johnson barked. Take the drive and go through the back. We scrambled through a narrow hallway, out the back door into a dusty alley. My feet pounded the earth as shouts followed us. I clutched the flash drive so tightly it cut into my palm. We ducked behind a kiosk stacked with crates of empty bottles. The men's footsteps grew louder, then faded, then grew louder again. My breath came in gasps. Finally, sirens wailed in the distance. The men scattered like shadows under the sun. We emerged, shaken, but still holding the drive. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the files again. Each clip, each document was a mirror held up to Marcus's soul. One video caught me hardest. It was Marcus, sitting in a plush leather chair, speaking into the phone. His voice was smooth, casual. If she ever tries to leave, I'll ruin her, he said. I'll make her look like a mad woman. They'll laugh at her, pity her, but never believe her. That's what you do. You don't just break their bodies, you break their names. I closed the laptop with shaking hands. The next morning, newspapers exploded with headlines. Marcus Adeyemi arrested. Attempted murder or misunderstanding. Video footage divides public opinion. Wife of billionaire heir speaks. Is this the truth? And then, another bombshell. Marcus's bail had been approved. He was walking free until trial. I felt the blood drain from my face when I heard. They're buying time, Johnson said grimly. He'll use every minute to twist the story. That evening, the unknown number texted again. He's coming for you. Get ready. My heart raced. Who is this? I texted back. Why are you helping me? Minutes passed before the reply came. Because I was once like you, and I didn't survive. Don't make my mistake. I sat frozen, staring at the words until they blurred. That night, I heard noises outside my house, footsteps, whispers. When I peered through the curtain, I saw a car parked across the street, engine running, lights off, watching. Fear clawed up my throat. I grabbed my phone, dialed the police, but by the time they arrived, the car was gone. Auntie Sade hugged me tight. This is war, my child, but wars are not won by hiding. They're won by exposing the enemy in full daylight. The next day, we called a press conference. Journalists crowded the small hall. their cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. My palms sweated, but I stood at the podium, my bandaged hand trembling only slightly. "I am alive today, because I fought to survive," I began. "But Marcus tried to kill me, and now I have proof, not just of what he did to me, but of who he really is." Gasps filled the room as we played the first audio clip. Marcus laughing with a senator about burying a business rival. The second file, a video of him threatening another woman. Murmurs rippled through the hall. The press conference ended in chaos, reporters shouting questions, flashes blinding my eyes. But one thing was clear: the war had begun in daylight. That evening, Marcus himself appeared on live television. He wore a dark suit, his face calm, his voice dripping with charm. "My wife is unwell," he said smoothly. "She is manipulated by people who want to destroy me. The footage, the files, it's all fabricated. I love her. I forgive her lies because I know pain makes people say things they don't mean." I stared at the screen, fury burning hot in my chest. He was painting me as unstable, emotional, broken. And some people would believe him, but others wouldn't. The proof was out. Later that night, as I sat at my desk, my phone buzzed once more. "Well done. But this is only the first layer. There are deeper secrets. Secrets that will shake not just Marcus, but the entire city. If you want them, meet me again." I closed my eyes, my heart heavy. The war wasn't ending. It was only deepening. And for the first time, I wondered if I was ready to carry not just my own fight, but a battle against powers I couldn't yet see. The city never truly sleeps. Lagos, with its endless horns, its restless waters, and its people moving like waves, seemed louder than usual the night after Marcus's press conference. His face had been everywhere, on televisions in roadside bars, on phones in Danfo's, even whispered about in the market stalls where women sold tomatoes and pepper. Some believed me, many doubted me, but everyone was talking. And when people talk, power trembles. That night, as I lay awake on the thin mattress at Auntie Sadie's, the unknown number buzzed again. The words appeared on my screen, sharp as a blade. "You've opened the first door." The next one is heavier. "Meet me tomorrow." Abandoned courthouse. Midnight. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. Who was this person? Why help me? Why hide? Beside me, Auntie Sadie stirred and opened her eyes. Even in the dim light, I could see the steel in them. "What is it now?" she asked. I handed her the phone. She read silently, then sighed. "This person, they are pulling you deeper. Are you ready? Proof is power, yes, but proof also paints a target on your back." "I need to know everything," I whispered. "If Marcus is only the beginning, then who else is in the shadows? Who else let him believe he was untouchable?" Her lips tightened. "Then we go. But remember, child, curiosity feeds courage, and courage feeds danger." The next night, the courthouse loomed like a carcass from another era. Its roof sagged, its windows shattered, but the walls still carried the weight of history. This was where colonial rulers once judged men, where politicians once swore false oaths, where truth and lies had danced for generations. The air inside was heavy, filled with dust and the faint smell of mildew. The moonlight filtered through broken glass, striping the floor in pale silver. We waited, the silence pressing against my chest. Then, footsteps. The same man in the baseball cap emerged from the shadows. His shoulders were hunched, his movements jittery. But his eyes, quick, darting, were sharp with urgency. "You came," he said. "You said there's more," I replied, my voice firm. He nodded, glancing around nervously. Marcus wasn't working alone. He was part of something bigger. A circle. Men with money, men with power. They call themselves the Table. Auntie Sadie frowned. The Table? Yes, the man said, because everything, every deal, every betrayal happens at their table. They've buried scandals, stolen billions, ruined families. Marcus was their enforcer. He kept people silent. That's why he thought he could kill you and walk away. Because the Table always cleans up after its own. My stomach clenched. The name itself carried weight, like something carved into stone. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you survived, he said simply. And survival makes you dangerous to them. If you speak, if you show the world what you have, you don't just bring Marcus down. You shake the Table itself. But that also means... He paused, his eyes darkening. They will come for you harder. They won't send just thugs with rocks. They'll send men who never miss. He reached into his bag and pulled out another flash drive, placing it in my hand. This has evidence of the Table, meetings, accounts, a list of names. Use it carefully. I stared at it, my pulse hammering. The first drive had nearly killed me. This one could start a war. Before I could respond, the sound of engines cut through the night. Headlights flared through the courthouse windows. Doors slammed. Voices shouted. "They found us again!" Auntie Sadie hissed. The man's eyes widened. "Run!" We sprinted down the corridor, our footsteps echoing. Behind us, men poured into the courthouse, their flashlights cutting across the dust. Bullets cracked the silence. Stone splintered. I clutched the new flash drive like a lifeline, my heart slamming against my ribs. We ducked into a side chamber, the wooden door hanging crooked on rusty hinges. Auntie Sad shoved it shut and braced it with her shoulder. "Go!" she barked. "Find another way out." "I won't leave you." "Child, don't argue." The men's footsteps grew closer. The hinges groaned under the weight of fists pounding. I grabbed Auntie Sadie's arm, desperate, when suddenly a blinding light flooded the chamber. Police sirens wailed outside. Shouts erupted, commands, confusion, curses. The men scattered, their footsteps fading into the chaos. When we finally stumbled outside, the police were everywhere. Their blue lights washed over the cracked courthouse walls. The man in the baseball cap was gone, vanished into the night like smoke. But the drive was still in my hand. Back at home, exhaustion pressed against me, but sleep would not come. I sat at the table, staring at the flash drive. Auntie Sadie sat opposite me, her face lined with worry. "This is too big," she murmured. "The Table is not like Marcus. Marcus was one snake. But this is a nest." "I can't stop now," I whispered. "If I stop, they win. And if they win, they'll bury me. They'll bury all of us." She reached across the table, her hand warm over mine. "Then be ready. Because once you pull the cloth off the table, everyone seated there will fight to the death to keep their food." The next day, news hit the city like a thunderclap. Marcus was out on bail, and he had already called for a press rally at a luxury hotel. Cameras would be there. Politicians would be there. He would use the stage to paint himself as the victim, the loving husband betrayed by lies. Johnson, the lawyer, came to see me. "This is your chance," he said. "If you want to shatter his mask, you must do it publicly, in front of the same cameras he hides behind." The thought twisted my stomach. Facing Marcus again, under the gaze of flashing cameras, terrified me. But fear was no longer enough to silence me. That evening, I stood in front of the mirror, my bandaged hand resting against the glass. The scars on my palm were ugly, jagged, but they were mine. Proof of survival, proof of truth. When the night of the rally came, the hotel glittered with lights. Luxury cars lined the driveway. Inside, chandeliers sparkled, cameras clicked, and Marcus stood at the podium. His voice smooth, his smile confident. "My wife has been misled," he declared. "She is hurt, and I forgive her pain. But I will not let lies destroy my family's name. The footage is fake. The accusations are fake. And I—" The doors at the back swung open. I stepped in. Gasps rippled through the hall. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. Marcus's smile faltered, just for a heartbeat. I walked straight to the front, the flash drive clutched in my hand. My voice was steady as I spoke into the microphone. "You tried to push me out of the sky," I said. "You tried to cut the rope. But I survived. And now, the truth will fly higher than your lies." I held up the drive. "This is not just about Marcus. This is about the table, about every hand that fed him, every voice that protected him. And tonight, the world will hear." The hall erupted. Shouts, questions, chaos. Marcus's face twisted, the mask slipping, and in that moment, I knew the war had entered a new battlefield. The hotel rally ended in chaos. My words had detonated in the room like a grenade, scattering certainty, shattering Marcus's carefully polished mask. Reporters shouted, microphones shoved toward me, cameras flashed so brightly the hall looked like it was struck by lightning. And Marcus, my husband, my would-be killer, stood frozen at the podium, his jaw tight, his smile gone, his eyes burning holes through me. He didn't need to speak for me to know what he was thinking. "You should have died when I pushed you. I'll finish it another way." The security team tried to calm the crowd, but by then it was too late. The footage was already in the air. The press had caught my words. The drive was being copied onto laptops, and I could see the hunger in the reporters' eyes. This was bigger than Marcus. It was about the table, a shadow that now had a name. As Auntie Sade and Johnson hurried me out of the hotel, the crowd surged behind us. My chest heaved, adrenaline coursing through me. But when we stepped into the humid night air, a chill ran down my spine. Across the street, parked beneath a flickering lamp, a black SUV idled. The windows were tinted, but I could feel the eyes inside, watching, waiting. "They've seen you now," Auntie Sade muttered, clutching my arm. "No more hiding." That night, we didn't go home. Johnson drove us through winding back streets, finally stopping at a safe house, a small compound on the edge of Surulera, owned by a retired judge who owed him favors. The walls were high, the gate heavy. Inside, the air smelled of dust and palm oil, the rooms bare except for old wooden chairs and mosquito nets hanging limp from the ceiling. "This is temporary," Johnson said. "We can't stay long. The table has reach, but at least here, you'll breathe." I nodded, but breathing wasn't easy. Every creak of the gate, every bark of a distant dog made my skin prickle. That night, as the generator hummed outside and the fan stirred hot air above me, I lay awake. The flash drive was under my pillow, its plastic edges pressing into my cheek like a reminder. Truth is heavier than fear. But fear still lived in me. By morning, the war had exploded beyond our control. Newspapers screamed headlines. "Wife claims billionaire, husband part of secret society." "Who are the table?" "Expose rocks Lagos." Footage and files shake political foundations. Social media boiled. Some called me brave. Others called me a liar. Memes mocked Marcus's shove, turning my pain into jokes. But beneath the noise, I could feel the ground shifting. Politicians were being named. Businessmen were being whispered about. The table was bleeding, and bleeding men lash out. That afternoon, Johnson brought grim news. 2 journalists who reported on the drive were attacked last night. One's in hospital, the other fled. My stomach clenched. They're trying to silence everyone. Yes, he said, and they will try to silence you first. The attack came sooner than I expected. We were eating dinner in the safe house, boiled yam and palm oil, simple food, heavy with comfort, when the power cut. Darkness swallowed the room. The fan slowed, then stopped. The silence rang. Auntie Sadie's hand gripped mine. "Stay still," she whispered. From outside, footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Johnson reached for his phone, but before he could dial, the gate groaned. A crash. Then another. The sound of iron straining under force. "They're breaking in," he hissed. Panic surged, but I remembered the lagoon, the rope, the knife. I had lived through worse. We scrambled to the back door. The night air smelled of rain, heavy and sharp. But as we stepped into the yard, shadows moved. Men, 5, maybe 6, faces hidden, machetes glinting in the moonlight. "Go!" Johnson shouted, pushing me toward the wall. "Climb!" I grabbed the rough bricks, the flash drive digging into my pocket. My stitches screamed as I pulled myself up, the scar in my palm tearing. But I climbed. Auntie Sade climbed beside me, her scarf trailing like a banner. One of the men lunged, grabbing her ankle. She kicked, fierce as a lioness, and his grip slipped. We tumbled over the wall, landing hard on the dirt outside. My breath left me in a rush, pain stabbing my ribs. Behind us, the men shouted. The gate rattled. Dogs barked in the distance. We ran. Through narrow alleys, past shuttered shops, our footsteps loud in the night. My lungs burned, my legs trembled, but fear carried me. Finally, we ducked into a church compound. The gates stood open, the altar candles flickering inside. A priest looked up in surprise as we stumbled in, gasping, bleeding, wild-eyed. "Sanctuary," Auntie Sade wheezed. "Please." The priest nodded solemnly. "You are safe here. For now." The church became our refuge for 2 days. We slept on wooden pews, the scent of incense heavy in the air. Parishioners brought food, whispered prayers over us, touched my bandaged hand as if I were both wounded and holy. But safety in Lagos is always temporary. On the 3rd day, soldiers arrived. Not police, soldiers. Their uniforms sharp, their boots heavy. They claimed they were here to protect me, to escort me to a secure location. But the priest's eyes told me the truth. Protection was a lie. They had come to take me. I refused. "I will not leave with them," the soldiers insisted. "You have no choice." And then, from the back of the church, a familiar voice cut through, "Leave her." The man in the baseball cap stepped forward, his eyes blazing. "She's mine to protect," he said. The soldiers stiffened. For a moment, tension thickened the air like smoke. Then, without another word, they turned and marched out. The priest crossed himself. Auntie Sade muttered a prayer. I stared at the man. "Who are you?" I demanded. He removed his cap, revealing a scar running down the side of his face. "My name is Daniel," he said quietly. I used to sit at the table. The world tilted. "You were one of them?" I whispered. "Yes," he said. "But I left when I saw what they truly were. Marcus was their hound. I was their scribe. I kept records. That's why I can help you. But know this, the deeper we go, the more dangerous it becomes. They won't stop at threats. They won't stop at machetes. They will come until one of us is gone. My chest tightened. For a moment, I wanted to throw the drives into the fire, to walk away, to reclaim the simple life I had before Marcus's shadow consumed me. But it was too late. I touched the scar in my palm, the reminder of the rope, the fall, the survival. "I won't stop," I said. Daniel's eyes softened, but his voice stayed hard. "Then you must be ready to pay the price." That night, sleep eluded me again. I lay on the pew, staring at the flickering candles. The church walls whispered with prayers, but my heart beat with fear and fire. The table was real. Marcus was just one piece. And now, I was standing against them with only scars, drives, and stubbornness as my weapons. But sometimes, scars are sharper than swords. I closed my eyes, gripping the flash drive under my pillow. The war was far from over, and the next battle was already on its way. The church bells rang at dawn, echoing over the neighborhood like a reminder that the world still turned, even while mine was being torn apart. Parishioners filed in, murmuring prayers, clutching rosaries, bowing their heads. To them, this was just another day. To me, it was a countdown. Daniel sat in the corner, his scar catching the pale light, his face grave. Auntie Sadi watched him with suspicion, her arms crossed tight over her chest. She trusted few men, and certainly not one who admitted to once sitting at the table. "Why help us?" she asked finally. "What's in it for you?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Because I know what happens when the table wins. They bury truth. They bury people. I've seen it. I have blood on my hands because I stayed too long. Helping her," he nodded toward me, "is the only way I can wash some of it off." His words chilled me, but I believed him. There was no tremor in his voice, no rehearsed smoothness like Marcus. He spoke like a man haunted. "What's next?" I asked. Daniel leaned forward. "The table is panicking. They don't like daylight. Your press conference rattled them. They're gathering now, in secret, to decide how to silence you. If we strike first, we can expose them before they bury you." "Expose them how?" He pulled out another folder, thick, worn, papers crammed inside. He spread them across the wooden pew like cards on a table. Bank transfers, land deeds, photos of men shaking hands in dimly lit rooms. "These are the names," Daniel said. "Senators, business tycoons, even judges. They meet under the guise of charity, culture, business. But behind the curtain, they trade favors like currency. Marcus was their blunt knife. If you reveal this, you don't just destroy him, you burn the table." I stared at the documents, my stomach twisting. These weren't just strangers. These were men whose faces filled billboards, whose voices filled radios, whose money built schools and hospitals. To accuse them was to touch fire with bare hands. "They'll kill me," I whispered. "They'll try," Daniel corrected. "But if you move fast enough, the people will shield you. The louder you shout, the harder it is for them to silence you." That evening, Johnson arranged for us to meet with a group of investigative journalists, brave souls who had already risked much to publish the first files. They gathered in a small apartment, curtains drawn, laptops glowing. The air was heavy with cigarette smoke and urgency. "We've seen the first drive," one journalist said, adjusting his glasses. "But this is dynamite." He tapped the folder Daniel had brought. "If we publish this, it could bring half the city's power structure crashing down." "And it could get us all killed," another added grimly. "We don't have time to be afraid," I said, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. "They've already tried to kill me. They'll keep trying. But if we spread this, they can't kill all of us." The journalists exchanged glances. One finally nodded. We'll do it. But we need protection. You need protection. Johnson leaned forward. We'll get it. But we move tonight. We worked for hours, scanning, copying, uploading. Files flew across encrypted networks, bouncing from server to server. My eyes blurred, my head throbbed, but I didn't stop. Each document uploaded felt like a stone pried from the table's foundation. But fear was never far. Around midnight, Daniel's phone buzzed. He checked the message, his face hardening. They know, he said. They're moving against us now. Before we could react, the sound of engines roared outside. Tires screeched. Headlights blazed through the curtains. Down! Johnson barked. Gunfire shattered the windows. Glass rained across the floor. Journalists screamed, diving for cover. Laptops toppled, sparks flying. I crawled across the floor, heart hammering, clutching the flash drive like it was my last breath. Bullets thudded into the walls, plaster exploding. Daniel pulled me behind a couch, his body shielding mine. "Stay low!" he shouted. Sirens wailed in the distance. Blue lights flickered. The gunfire ceased as quickly as it had begun. The attackers sped off, leaving smoke and shattered glass in their wake. The journalists stared at each other, shaken but alive. One's hands trembled as he typed furiously, sending files across secure lines. "They failed," he said through clenched teeth. "It's out now. It's everywhere. They can't stop it." Relief washed over me, but it was thin, fragile, because I knew the table wouldn't stop. This was just the beginning. The next morning, the city woke to fire. Headlines screamed names. Senators, CEOs, judges. Hashtags trended. On the table exposed. Justice for survivors. Truth will not die radio stations buzzed. TV anchors stammered. Social media burned. But alongside the truth came the lies. Videos appeared claiming I had been paid to smear Marcus. Articles suggested I was mentally unstable. Anonymous callers left voicemails saying I would disappear like the others. The table had bared its teeth. That afternoon, as we regrouped in the church, a stranger arrived. A woman, tall, elegant, her hair braided in a crown. She introduced herself as Miriam, a lawyer from Abuja known for taking on impossible cases. "I've read the files," she said. "If you want this fight to end, you'll need the courts. Street protests and headlines aren't enough. You must stand in front of a judge and name them. All of them." My heart clenched. To stand in court, to face them all, it was unthinkable. But it was the only way. "I'll do it," I said, my voice trembling but sure. Miriam smiled faintly. "Then be ready. Because once you enter that courtroom, there's no turning back." That night, as I lay on the pew, exhaustion pressing on me, my phone buzzed again. The unknown number. "You are brave. But bravery has a price. The table will not stop until one of you is gone. Choose wisely. Survival or truth." My chest tightened. My mind raced with images. Marcus's shove, the lagoon's cold embrace, the rope burning my palm, the bullets at the safe house, the shattered glass at the journalist's apartment. Survival or truth? Could I have both? Auntie Sade's hand found mine in the dark. "Don't fear their choice," she whispered. "Make your own. That's how you win." I closed my eyes, gripping the flash drive like a rosary. The scars in my palm throbbed. The fight was no longer about me alone. It was about everyone who had been silenced, everyone buried by the table's lies. And I knew, when the time came, I would choose truth, even if it killed me. If you were in my place, would you choose survival or truth? Tell me in the comments below. I want to hear your thoughts. And don't forget, if you've stayed with me this far, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the final battles of this story. Share it with a friend too, because sometimes the only way to fight the powerful is together. The courthouse was packed. By the time I arrived, escorted by Miriam and Johnson, the air inside the great hall felt heavy with sweat, perfume, and expectation. Journalists jostled for position. Cameras clicked. Spectators whispered like restless waves. Even the carved wooden walls seemed to lean forward, eager to hear what would unfold. On one side of the courtroom, I sat with my team. Miriam, her braids wrapped like a crown, Johnson with his frayed suit and sharp eyes, and Daniel, watching silently from the gallery. Beside me, Auntie Sade squeezed my hand, her palm warm, grounding me. On the other side sat Marcus. He wore a pristine navy suit, his tie the color of blood. His mother sat beside him, silver braids gleaming, her face serene, as though she already knew the outcome. Behind them, rows of powerful men, politicians, businessmen, judges, members of the table. They filled the room like shadows given flesh. The judge entered, robed and solemn, his gavel striking the bench. Order in the court. The trial began. Miriam rose first. Her voice was calm but fierce. Your Honor, this is not just a case of attempted murder. This is a case about power. A case about men who believe they can push a woman out of the sky and walk away because of who they are. But today, truth will not bow. She presented the first evidence, the helicopter footage. The courtroom screens flickered, and there it was, the shove, the fall, the knife. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some covered their mouths. Others shook their heads. Marcus's lawyer, a smooth man with a British accent and a gold pen clipped to his pocket, rose next. The footage is inconclusive, he said. Angles deceive. My client was attempting to save his wife, not harm her. This is nothing more than a marital dispute blown out of proportion. The words made bile rise in my throat. Then came the flash drives. Miriam submitted the files, bank records, bribes, secret meetings. She read out names, dates, amounts. Senators squirmed in their seats. A CEO wiped sweat from his brow. The gallery buzzed with whispers. But Marcus's lawyer was ready. He claimed the files were fabricated, doctored by opportunists seeking attention. He held up a printed article from a tabloid calling me unstable. A woman with a history of exaggeration. Is this the testimony we should trust? He asked smoothly. The judge banged his gavel for silence. My chest burned with fury, but Miriam's hand on my arm kept me grounded. Then it was my turn to testify. I stood, palms sweaty, heart pounding. Every eye in the room turned to me. Marcus's gaze burned, cold and sharp, trying to cut me down without touching me. I swallowed hard and began. I was falling. That's how this started. Falling from a helicopter because my husband pushed me. My voice wavered at first, then steadied. He wanted me gone because he saw me as a stain. But I survived. And now I stand here, not just for myself, but for every person the table has silenced. I lifted my bandaged hand, the scar still jagged across my palm. This scar is proof. Proof that I fought to live. Proof that they tried to erase me and failed. The courtroom was silent. Even the air seemed to pause. Marcus's lawyer rose, smirking. Mrs. Adeyemi, isn't it true that you have exaggerated before? Isn't it true that you are emotionally unstable? I am many things, I said, meeting his eyes, but unstable is not one of them. The only unstable thing here is the truth you keep running from. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. The trial dragged on for hours. Witnesses came forward, some trembling, some bold. The pilot testified, confirming what he saw. A journalist recounted the attacks after publishing the files. Even Daniel spoke, admitting his role in the table and naming names. Each testimony was a blade, cutting away Marcus's mask. But the table fought back. Their lawyers filed motions. Their supporters shouted from the gallery. Their money whispered through unseen channels. Twice, the judge called for order as chaos threatened to swallow the room. At one point, Marcus leaned close to his lawyer and whispered. Then he looked at me, his smile slow and poisonous. Minutes later, the lawyer produced a document. Your Honor, we have evidence that my client's wife has been receiving money from an anonymous source. Large sums. How do we know she is not being paid to stage this entire charade? Gasps filled the room. Cameras clicked. My stomach dropped. That's a lie, I shouted, but my voice cracked. The lawyer waved the paper triumphantly. Bank statements don't lie. She is being funded to destroy her husband's reputation. For a moment, the room tilted. The crowd's whispers grew sharp, skeptical. Even the judge's brow furrowed. I turned to Miriam, panic rising. I don't know what this is. I never… She squeezed my arm. Stay calm. This is their trick. We'll counter it. But doubt had already been planted. That night, back at the church safe house, I couldn't eat. The weight of the day pressed on me like a stone. They're fabricating evidence now, I said bitterly. If people believe it, everything we've done collapses. Daniel sat across from me, his face grim. That's what the table does. They don't just fight with guns and money. They fight with stories. They rewrite reality until the world believes them. I buried my face in my hands. For the first time, I felt the fight slipping. Then Auntie Sadie's voice cut through, steady and fierce. Child, do you remember the lagoon? Do you remember the rope? You didn't let go then? Don't let go now. Truth may be slower than lies, but when it arrives, it stays. Her words lit something inside me, small but burning. The next day, Miriam unveiled her counterattack. Your Honor, she said, standing tall, the defense claims my client is being funded. But we traced those transactions. They don't come from her accounts. They come from a shell company tied to none other than Marcus Adeyemi himself. He planted the money, then blamed her. The courtroom erupted. Reporters shouted. Cameras flashed. Marcus's face twisted, his mask cracking. The judge banged his gavel furiously. Order! For the first time, I saw fear flicker across Marcus's face, but it was fleeting. He leaned back in his chair, his mother's hand resting on his, and his smile returned. Thin, dangerous, because even cornered men can strike. That evening, as we left the courthouse, a crowd had gathered outside. Some cheered for me, chanting my name. Others shouted insults, calling me a liar, a traitor, a madwoman. The air was thick with tension, on the verge of breaking. As I stepped into the car, someone in the crowd threw a stone. It smashed against the window, cracking the glass. Shouts erupted. Police surged forward, pushing the crowd back. I ducked low, my heart pounding. They won't stop, Miriam muttered grimly. And tomorrow, they'll come harder. That night, the unknown number buzzed again. Tomorrow, Marcus will make his move. Be ready. The table doesn't play fair. I stared at the message, my chest tight. Tomorrow could be my end, or theirs. The courthouse was louder than ever. By the 10th day of trial, Lagos itself seemed to lean against the walls of that room, listening, judging, waiting. The crowd outside had doubled, supporters chanting for justice, detractors calling me a liar, journalists broadcasting every second. Inside, the air was so thick, it felt like you could slice it. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my scarred palm pressed against the wood, the flash drives stacked neatly before me like talismans. Miriam stood tall beside me, her braids shining like a crown. Johnson adjusted his worn suit, the same determination etched on his face. Auntie Sade sat in the front row, her eyes fierce, a prayer tucked in her lips. And Daniel lingered in the gallery, silent, watchful, his scar a reminder of the darkness we faced. Across from us, Marcus sat immaculate in a gray suit, his tie gold, his posture regal. His smile returned, smooth and poisonous. His mother sat like a queen beside him. Behind them, the rows of the table members, businessmen, politicians, judges, sat like statues of power, their eyes sharp, their hands still. This was no longer about marriage. It was about truth versus empire. The judge called for order. Today, we hear closing arguments. Miriam rose first. Her voice was clear, steady, cutting through the murmurs. Your Honor, we have shown footage of the attempted murder. We have shown scars on her body, scars she will carry for life. We have presented files that expose not just one man, but a network of men who believe power is a shield from consequence. This case is not just about a woman pushed from a helicopter. It is about every survivor who was told their pain was imaginary. It is about every truth buried under money and lies. Today, you must decide whether the law serves the powerful or the people it was meant to protect. Her words echoed, heavy and true. Then Marcus's lawyer rose, smooth as ever. His voice was calm, confident, laced with disdain. Your Honor, my client is a respected businessman, a philanthropist, a man who has built schools and hospitals. Are we to believe he risked all that because of a fart? He let the word hang in the air, drawing laughter from some corners of the gallery. This case is absurd. The footage is unclear. The files are fabricated. The witnesses are biased. What we have here is not truth. It is vengeance. My client's wife has been manipulated into destroying her own family for the amusement of the masses. I ask you to dismiss this circus and restore dignity to the court. He bowed, smug, as if the words had already sealed victory. The judge's gavel struck once. We will recess. Judgment will be delivered after deliberation. The courtroom erupted. Shouts, arguments, whispers. Reporters rushed out to file their stories. As I stood, Marcus caught my eye. His smile widened, and then, so low only I could hear, he whispered, "You won't live to hear the verdict." A chill shot down my spine. That evening, as we prepared to leave under police escort, chaos broke outside. Protesters clashed, stones flew, tear gas clouded the air. Amid the smoke and shouts, I saw them, men in dark suits, moving with intent, their eyes fixed on me. "Inside! Now!" Johnson barked, pushing me back. Gunfire cracked. Screams split the air. Police shields rose. The men surged closer, but Daniel appeared from nowhere, slamming one aside, dragging me toward safety. "This is it," he shouted over the chaos. "The table's final move. They won't wait for the verdict. They want you silenced tonight." We stumbled through alleys, the smoke stinging my eyes, the roar of the crowd chasing us. My chest burned, my scar throbbed, but I clutched the flash drives like lifelines. At last, we ducked into a narrow street where the noise softened. Daniel leaned against the wall, panting. "We can't run forever. You must finish it." "Finish it how?" I gasped. "Broadcast everything," he said. "Now. all the files, all the footage. Let the world see before they can bury you. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. The networks were unstable, jammed by the chaos, but Miriam's team had prepared for this. One click, one upload, and every file, every secret of the table poured into the digital world. Bank records, audio tapes, video confessions, names, faces, proof. Within minutes, it was trending worldwide. Hashtags erupted. Tucker, the table exposed. Yeah to justice for survivors. So truth is stronger, the world had seen. And there was no taking it back. By dawn, the courthouse was surrounded by military trucks. Not to silence me, this time, to arrest the men of the table. The files had sparked outrage too loud to ignore. Protests flooded the streets, not just in Lagos, but across the country. People carried signs with my name, with Marcus's face, with demands for justice. Inside, the judge delivered his verdict. Marcus Adeyemi, this court finds you guilty of attempted murder. In addition, based on overwhelming evidence, an investigation will proceed into the organization known as the Table. Let it be known, power is not immunity. This court stands for truth. The gavel struck. The courtroom exploded. Cheers, gasps, shouts. Reporters surged. The table's members shouted in fury as soldiers moved in, placing them under arrest. Marcus stood, his face pale, his smile gone. For the first time he looked small. He turned to me, his eyes filled with hate. "You'll regret this," he spat as they cuffed him. I met his gaze, lifting my scarred hand. I already did, but I survived. The trial ended, but the war had carved scars deeper than my palm. For weeks, the city buzzed. The table crumbled, its members dragged into courts, their empires shaken. Some fled. Some confessed. Some fought. But the tide had turned. The people were awake now. As for me, I walked out of the courthouse free. Not from danger, but from silence. My name was no longer just a whisper. It was a rallying cry. At night, I still dreamed of falling, of water closing over my head, of the rope burning my flesh. But when I woke, I touched the scar and reminded myself, scars are proof that you lived. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the lagoon, Auntie Sade sat with me on the porch of her house. She held my hand, her eyes soft. "You chose truth," she said. I nodded, even when it almost killed me. "Truth always demands blood," she whispered. "But now your blood has fed courage in others. That is how change begins." We sat in silence, watching the water shimmer. Somewhere in the distance, children laughed, chasing kites. Life moved forward. For the first time in a long time, I felt it too. Not fear, not anger, hope.